We're standing on the shoulders of giants, 100%. And since someone mentioned Galveston, it was one of the first comments I read, I'm going to read this one next. Lost Race of Texas, 1891. Prehistoric city near Galveston engulfed by a tidal wave. Relics of a prehistoric race were discovered in Galveston, Texas, just previous to the storm that flooded the city. I apologize for the cutoff here. You know, sometimes these scans, when they get to the edge of a page, they can get a little shitty. Nearly 2,000 human skeletons were found. This is insane, you guys. And scientists who examined the excavations had just given the opinion that an ancient city had been submerged by a tidal wave that drove all the inhabitants when the calamity of centuries ago was repeated. The bones were discovered in search for relics for the archaeological exhibit of the Pan American exhibition. You'll find this again over and over and over. These exhibitions are just collecting relics from all over the world, predominantly the American Southwest, but all over the United States, and putting them on show. And this is no different, because once these things are over, they just get buried and taken underground, which is to be held in Buffalo next summer. The skeletons, beyond a doubt, several thousand years old, and the character of the people who occupied the coast of the Gulf in this period is an interesting subject of speculation. However, they may have been, and whenever they may have lived, the remains found show beyond question that some terrible outbreak of nature caused the sudden death of thousands of these ancient people, and their burial in the strata were chance that they were exhumed by the people of a far distant age. It was but a short time ago that the excavations were begun, which rested in these singular and extraordinary discoveries. The finding of the remains in the first place was quite accidental. H.G. Simmons, superintendent of the Arizona New Mexico Railway, was making excavations along the lines of the railroad. Now, what's amazing about this too is you find so often when they're building railroads that they keep uncovering stuff. You know, when you're driving pylons, you know, if you're building over any kind of a depression, you know, and you have to create a small little bridge or raise an elevation or whatever it is, they find stuff like this. And we're going to explore another one later on in this episode. When they are building a bridge across a river and driving pylons, they uncover some more ancient burial history. When bones were found in the earth removed, examination of the contents of the steam shovel, skulls and human teeth were noticed. Now just imagine, you know, you're building a railroad and you start digging into the earth and you're just literally hundreds and hundreds of bones and skulls. You're just digging through bodies. Further search led to the discovery of skeletons of whole families, together with ivory beads and other objects of human handiwork. Now, the ivory thing is really incredible. We found ivory from Alaska all the way here to Texas. This whole series, ivory's everywhere. And we keep talking about the mines. The ancient areas here were always related to Solomon. And I've been postulating the whole time that this whole area was Ophir, and the gold, the richest mines in the world were here. You know, all down the Mississippi Valley into the American Southwest, even up into Alaska. I mean, obviously, Alaska is one of the richest gold mining places in the world. And, you know, I showed an article talking about, was Noah's Ark discovered in Alaska? Well, I don't necessarily think it was Noah's Ark. I think it was one of these giant Atlantean ships that, you know, long ago I've talked about several times. The ship was 1,200 feet long. And absolutely, you can imagine, you know, it was petrified. This is a ship from a previous age, and I've hypothesized that the Atlantean ships were probably around 1,000 feet or maybe a little more. And, you know, Dr. Longo has, with his giant stone anchors, I think that's pretty close. It might even be a little bit larger. And the size of a human required to move these stone anchors makes a 1,200-foot ship, make a lot more sense. And that these people were mining from Alaska. Again, they find ancient mines, Roman cities, mosques, ancient cities with mosques buried in ice in Alaska. So yeah, not a stretch now. That's kind of been the bonus of being 10 episodes in. We have a ton of material to go back and look through, and we keep finding the same exact story. Ivory beads and other objects of human handiwork. Realizing the valuable and scientific character of the discovery, a systematic search of the strata in the vicinity was made. Geologists say the whole section of the state was once covered by the Gulf of Mexico. The idea once came to Mr. Simmons that in the distant ages a tidal wave had occurred at the time the Gulf covered more than that part of the country, that at present and that the bones were the remains of thousands of human beings who had been drowned in the overflow of the waters of the Gulf. The theory was later upheld by leading scientists. Now, this is great too because, again, not to keep talking about Dr. Longo, but we've talked endlessly about the obvious examples of a tidal event in the Gulf, and not just one. And as we get farther along here in this episode, we're going to show that the Gulf of Mexico either extended all the way into middle Florida or middle Texas, sorry, or there was an absolutely cataclysmic tidal wave. Now we've talked about Chicxulub crater and what kind of event would be caused by a meteor hitting the Earth in that location. But yeah, many possibilities there, but really, really interesting. And I wanted that to be the next one since someone had already mentioned Galveston.